So welcome everyone, thank you for joining me. My name is Mino Tomic, I'm a systems engineer with Skyhigh Security, based out of Germany, with the company for almost 5 years now. Unfortunately, due to the lack of time, 30-minute slot, I decided to not bother you too much with the workshopping things and to just sit back and relax. It will be a little portfolio presentation, let's call it that way. So it's titled Securing Your Cloud Transformation. So for our agenda, quote unquote, today I have these 3 little points. So who are these Skyhigh Security people? What's this cloud transformation they're talking about? And what can be done about it, if anything? So who is Skyhigh Security? Let's say the brand is new, but we are not new on block. So most of you, or at least some of you, know us as McAfee. So basically in 2021, McAfee Enterprise and FireEye were acquired by a group of investors called STG. In 2022, STG spun out Skyhigh as the cloud part of the McAfee business and Trellix as the endpoint part of the McAfee business under a common operating company. This year, we have separated completely with the FireEye portfolio being incorporated into the Trellix side of things. So we are a new brand, but we've been around the block. Some of our products have been in use for over 15 years now. Our mission and vision is basically to be a data-focused company, so focusing on data security. As we've heard today from Richard, everybody's talking about it. I'll use also some other buzzwords that he used as well, so I guess that means that we're all on the same track. A bit more of marketing, so shameless promo. So in 2023, Gartner Magic Quadrant for Security Service Edge, we were ranked as a visionary. Apologies if this is a little small, it's the approved Gartner slide, I must not change that. So yeah, basically we are ranked as a visionary. Last year we was a leader in the quadrant, and the explanation by Gartner was that, yeah, we don't like you that much anymore. So. However, if you take a look in their critical capabilities report, you will notice that our technology is rated excellent by their tech analysts, and out of 4 use cases for the SSE, we have scored #1 in 2 use cases and #3 in 2 other use cases. Our portfolio covers the entire range of the SSE. So we have our SWIG, CASB, ZTNA, and CNAP. The main point here is that they are all unified under a single platform, which share an intuitive dashboard with advanced data loss prevention capabilities across the portfolio, and they also present a unified policy management and unified threat prevention. So, what is this cloud transformation that we are talking about? Basically, what we are talking about here is that the way we work is transforming. So 70% of all enterprise workloads will be deployed in cloud infrastructure, according to some analysts again. Over 70% of US employees plan to continue working from home even these post-pandemic days. And this increase in the attack surface has led to a corresponding increase in the cyber activity. So 49% increase in cyber activity over the past few years. Cyber activity is a PC term for breaches. So, also what is changing is that your data is not just inside your perimeter anymore. So the data that your employees use is scattered across a wide range of shadow apps, sanctioned applications, containers in the cloud, private applications, you name it. And these trends are basically set to continue. So again, some fancy analysts have calculated that 61% of sensitive data is stored outside the environment in respective public clouds. And 75% of admins admit that shadow IT is impairing their organization's ability to keep that data secure, and the vast majority agree that some simplification in this is needed. So, what can be done about it? First, as on any journey, we need to know where we are starting, to know where we're going. So, how does a typical network stack look today? So, I think it looks something like this. But yeah, jokes aside, in some organizations, it typically looks something like this. So, you have an internal perimeter in which your endpoints reside. there is a web gateway, next generation firewall, some sort of perimeter defense device. The remote users that you have, they VPN in, and then they're filtered by the same policies on the way out. So how can this be transformed from this, let's call it the legacy architecture, into something that resembles a bit more modern SSE stack? So what we propose here is basically a unique differentiator that we have on the market, and that is a hybrid switch. In the hybrid switch, we are just removing part of the deployment from the endpoints and from the on-premises part and moving it to the cloud. The main difference here is that in the hybrid deployment mode, your remote users, their endpoints will go directly to our cloud. The users that are still in your major campuses on premises, they will still be filtered by the on-premises appliances. Additionally, what we can do, we can perform a reduction in the policy and the number of the on-premises appliances that you need by configuring the on-premises appliances in the next hop mode. So basically they will forward the traffic to the cloud. So any heavy anti-malware or DLP scanning can then be performed in the cloud, and then the uptime is no longer your worry. As a final point, you can synchronize the lists and the policies that you have bidirectionally. So you can have your remote users that access the cloud be filtered by the same policy as your endpoints inside your perimeter. We currently have 104, I believe, points of presence around the globe. So basically, wherever you go, your users will be filtered by the same policy, unless you go to mainland China for reasons that we don't know. So what are some advantages of the hybrid switch? So first, I know salespeople like this, is the licensing advantage. So we have a simple, predictable licensing structure where you can choose between 3 different levels of bundles, and that's it. So no, as they say, no hidden costs. You can easily extend the policies if you're already our customer. If you're not, we can help you become one. You can also adopt the cloud at your own pace. So we are not like some other competitors trying to force the cloud directly onto you. Basically, you can set the tone of the migration that you want. It's completely administrator controlled, so a simple UI, and you can decide what happens. The aforementioned cost savings, you can reduce the footprint of the appliances that you have by offloading the scanning to us. And if you have an existing suite, it doesn't need to be our suite, it can be a competitor suite. We can also configure them in a next step mode and basically have the advantages of the cloud with no changes to the existing network infrastructure. So we envisage hybrid mode as a stepping stone, so basically at your own pace, stepping stone to advanced and cloud-native features such as RBI, Shadow ID Discovery, Advanced DLP, Sanctioned App Controls, and Private Access. So now I will bother you a little with descriptions of each. So the remote browser isolation platform is an RBI that's built on pixel mirroring. In this little slide over there, the little screenshot, I don't know if you can see, the flow of the connectivity is described. So basically, your user's browser accesses a remote deployed isolated instance of a Chrome browser in our cloud, and that Chrome browser accesses the destination website. The return traffic is then analyzed by the remote browser, and it is transformed into a series of images, and it is streamed back to the endpoint on a one-to-one correspondence. So there is no code anymore exchanged between the destination site and the browser. The only thing that the user sees is an image. And the intelligence on the browser allows it to be mirrored in a sense that you can log into the site. You can even watch YouTube on it. What's important to mention, kudos to our competitors, but DLP and anti-malware are available in our RBA sessions, while they are not with some competitors. The seamless user experience that we offer can maybe be seen over there. Basically, the only indication that the customer or the user has that he's running in an isolated session is the prompt, which you can see here, loading the isolation, and a green bar that indicates that they are in an isolated session. Otherwise, the functionality is the same. In any SSE SKU, even the most basic ones, we include remote browser isolation for risky websites for free. So you don't need to pay anything extra. If the site is unverified and uncategorized, you will automatically be put in an isolated session. So you don't need to play the whack-a-mole anymore. I don't know this service, should I allow it, should I block it? You can just let the cloud isolate it. full on-demand RBI is available as an add-on SKU, and then you can say, I don't like these people in CNN, so I'll always isolate their website. What we have done is an industry-first convergence, what I mentioned. So some competitors like Menlo, they offer out-of-band remote isolation. So basically you need to leave your existing security stack to be isolated. What we have done is we have moved the isolation within the stack, and therefore we can offer AM and DLP on it. So Risky has mentioned that we include it for free, and the full isolation is an add-on SKU. An interesting stepping stone, as some people over here knows, the Shadow IT discovery. So we can bite the logs from your existing switches or firewalls into our cloud platform and help you discover what actually your users are using and doing on the cloud. So we have the largest and most accurate cloud service registry on the market with over 30,000 known cloud services. Some competitors will say we have more, but the difference is that this is actually updated. So these are the services active in the wild. We offer easy integration and service discovery. As mentioned, if you have a Palo, if you have a Forti, whatever, we will ingest their logs and we will tell you exactly what your users are doing. For each service, we do a service risk overview based on a 261-point risk assessment system. It is done partially automated by machine learning, but it is also human reviewed. So we have a team of analysts that updates every service at least once a year. With compatible suites, we can also offer closed loop remediation. Basically, from our cloud platform, we can export a list of rules, so your on-premises suite can consume that and block the services that you don't want to be exposed, that you don't want your customers, your users to be using. I can't go any further without talking about DLP that I mentioned several times. So our DLP engine is the most advanced on the market. You'll hear me brag about us a lot, but I guess that's to be expected. So we can enforce DLP based on keywords, data identifiers, optical character recognition, and regex. So basically, if your workloads are heavy on PDF, if you have a lot of contracts that you handle, you can safely rely on our OCR, for example, to have them inspected in line, or out of band with an API. So we offer a multi-tier remediation based on severity, so you are in control, and you can say, yeah, if someone from accounting is uploading something to a random website somewhere, that's a high-risk thing. But if someone who is in charge of, I don't know, don't want to offend anyone, but housekeeping, their web activity is of less of a risk. So you can assign incident severities in custom policies, and based on that severity, you can have multiple responses. So you can have a file quarantined, you can have a file deleted. You can just coach the user and say, are you really sure you want to upload this file there? They say, yes, I have a business justification. So you say, awesome, go ahead. We also, as mentioned, offer data loss prevention across all SSE vectors. So web, SaaS, IaaS, and private applications. Welcome to the competition. As mentioned, another interesting thing, I'm not mentioned, I'm about to mention. So you can see down in the little corner right there, unfortunately not visible here, but you can immediately in the web UI, you can see an excerpt of the actual data that triggered the rule. So for example, someone uploads credit card data, you can see right there the credit card number that was updated. Moving on, the section apps control. So you say, okay, it's all good, but this requires me to have some sweeps, requires me to have some infra. We can do sanctioned app control out of band, so we can do it inline via reverse proxy and out of band controls via API. Of course, this is only near real time then, but in our tests, as some of the partners here can vouch, we can see that the remediation times are in a couple of minutes, so they are always within the sub 10-minute range. So the files will never be exposed for too long. But me as a tech, I have to say this is not in line. So there will be some delay, not always dependent on us, of course. It can be dependent on the API's responsiveness, how big the load is on their side. So people think that major players never go down, but we've seen in a couple of last years that both Google and Facebook had major outages. So I can say we've had some too. As I said, I'm a tech, I'll be honest with you. But even with those outages, we boast 5 nines availability of our cloud service. So I would say that we can spare those couple of seconds. Some people from the finance industry heavily disagree with me on that, but yeah, I'm not a stock trader, so can't talk about that. So we have the largest number of sanctioned applications available in the market. We have over 40 integrations, some of which are visible here. The list is too long to be fit in any sort of reasonable display size, but we have some of the major ones over here, like you see GitHub, Google Cloud Platform, Google Drive, the entirety of the Office 365, and so on and so forth. Again, I cannot stress this enough, the policy management is unified across all SSE vectors, so there is one console for you to log in, there is one console for you to look at the incidents themselves, and there is no need to be juggling various UIs, or even worse, juggling various policies between different UIs. For our sanctioned apps, of course, mentioned we offer the reverse proxy. If you want to have inline controls for certain services, you can have it. So we have, for example, Office 365 inline reverse proxy. So that means that you do not need to use our swigs. You can go directly to the cloud through the reverse proxy and have just the CASB solution out of the pillars that we have mentioned. As well, reverse proxy and RBI integration for unknown applications is also present. So what we can do is we can pipe any service that we do not recognize into an isolated session and apply controls on the isolated session itself. So basically we can say, you can access this service, but you cannot download anything from it, you cannot upload anything to it. We can even go as far as to block the copy paste optionality of the clipboard. So if someone wants to say, I'll just copy paste this contract out, no, that will not work. One thing that I have tested, you can have an auto typer. Unfortunately, you can. So if there's a form on the website that accepts a bajillion characters, you can have an auto typer type into it. But we are thinking about ways of interpreting what is a human-based type input and what is an automated typer. Also, if you have the time to let an autotyper type 5 gigabytes of documents, then go ahead. The last point that I want to mention from this platform overview is the private access, which is the name that we have for the Zero Trust Network Access technology. This technology provides access to private applications, whether these are hosted in the public cloud or your own on-premises infrastructure. So the aim of that, or what the industry thinks it is right now, is basically a VPN replacement. So the problem with VPN being that it's a flat access, which enables you to move laterally within any network. And for example, as we have seen in some breach examples, that if someone obtains credentials from an admin who is allowed to VPN in, then they can have free reign of your network. So whether you have a service in Singapore or you have a service in Croatia, they can do it. Basically what we want to do with the private access is to move away from that sort of a flat access and have a micro-segmented, kudos to Cisco fans out here, micro-segmented approach to the network where we would define access per application. So on an application basis where you can say, Slavko here, he has full reign of the system, he can access all of these applications, but I, being a new guy in IT, I can only access one IDP instance. So, as mentioned, this is something that we can do whether it is hosted in the public cloud, like in AWS or Azure, or your own on-premises infrastructure. It is, needless to say, again, integrated with the platform, and we can do DLP and anti-malware within the private application. So let's say that you have a Jira instance that's running in your own premises, and you don't want anyone uploading any data to that Jira unless they are on premises. That's something that we can facilitate. We can facilitate access from outside, strictly for that user, strictly to this application, but they are not allowed to upload any data. because they're outside the company. Also, again, I know I'm boring, but we have unified policy management. Screen is visible over here. Maybe. I need to rethink this for the next time. Where basically you can be presented with a list of hierarchical rules that says, for example, if the private application is, you can read Apache, then the user needs to be in this list, and then the access will be allowed with DLP policy. So only the sanctioned stuff can be uploaded or downloaded from that internal service. Deployment on the endpoints is with our unified client, Skyhigh Client Proxy. This client is unified across all the use cases. So whether you use our cloud switch, whether you use our firewall as a service that I didn't include in this slides, or whether you use ZTNA, you can basically use it all from a single endpoint client. That endpoint client supports posture checks for managed devices. So basically you can state rules such as antivirus on this endpoint needs to be enabled, needs to be up to date, firewall needs to be enabled, needs to be up to date, certain version of Windows, or I don't know, things like this registry key needs to be present, or company CA needs to be placed in the trusted root certificate store. Unless these criteria are met, then the client will not be able to access private applications. Interesting for some is that we also offer clientless access for HTTPS applications. I love the word clientless because browser is the client, I mean really, but yeah, industry calls it clientless access because there is no agent installed on those machines, so maybe it would be called agentless. But I guess that's too matrixy or something, I don't know. So yeah, we offer clientless access for HTTPS applications, which can be interesting, for example, if you work with certain subcontractors or other workers that don't need full-time access to those systems, but you can have an external code reviewer, for example, just look into your Jira and see, okay, these things need fixing. Here's a fancy marketing slide of how that works. So basically, we have either Tom or Jane. So Tom is clientless, poor guy. Jane has a client. They use the Zero Trust Network Access, which is basically a little connector that we deploy inside your premises to access the IaaS, hosted apps, or the data center applications. So basically, we have envisaged the hybrid model that I have mentioned here as first steps into a larger world. So obvious Star Wars reference here. The first steps into a larger world could be, of course, contact us for a demo or a deep dive into any of the topics that I presented here. Maybe perform a shadow IT assessment, as mentioned, and some can attest here. It's simple. We just need your firewall logs. We can have them tokenized before they are exported to us for analysis, so no user data will ever leave your systems. And you can, this is a shameless plug for me, you can join a hands-on workshop that we do. This is a 3-hour hands-on session envisaged for technical people, where each of the attendants gets their own cloud tenant, gets their own remote desktop, and we have a series of guided use cases where you can configure and test out the demo the platform on your own. So that's it. I'm 2 minutes early, I think. So I would like to thank you all. There's been more of you than I thought there will be. If there's any questions right now, I can take one maybe. If not, hit me after the session. And yeah, we'll see each other around. It's not like there's anywhere to go to Moscow, right? Thank you.
Nino, you want to bring up the slide before and you just want to grab that again? So you can QR code very quickly.